let the night wrap around you. Tonight, history does not arrive on horseback, nor does it shout its victories across the plains. Tonight, history walks slowly, removes its boots, and sits down beside you. It speaks in a calm voice, one that does not ask you to remember dates, only to listen and rest. Imagine a wide Mongolian steppe under a quiet sky, where the wind moves like a long breath and time forgets to hurry. In this open land, great stories once unfolded, not all at once, but gently, day after day. Empires rose here, not with noise in our ears now, but with traces left behind for those who prefer calm observation over excitement. This is a story about two monuments separated by centuries, yet connected by memory. One is ancient, shaped by hands that never imagined tourists or guidebooks. The other is modern, built with steel and careful planning, standing tall without asking for attention. Both belong to Mongolia, and both have learned the art of waiting patiently. As we move forward, there is nothing you must solve, nothing you must analyze. The past will simply unfold at a comfortable pace. There will be room to breathe, to smile softly at history's quieter moments, and perhaps to drift slightly closer to sleep. Think of this not as a lesson, but as a gentle walk through time, where every step is unhurried and every story knows how to whisper. Karakorum was founded in the 13th century and became the capital of the Mongol Empire during its most expansive years. It was not chosen for decoration or drama, but for practicality. Located in the Orkhon Valley, it stood at a crossroads of movement, communication, and governance. In its time, Karakorum served as a place where decisions were made slowly, thoughtfully, and often after long journeys across grasslands. As a capital city, Karakorum functioned as the political and cultural center of the empire. It gathered administrators, craftsmen, travelers, and envoys, all moving at a pace far removed from modern urgency. There were no glowing screens or urgent alarms, only routines shaped by daylight and weather. Life in Karakorum followed the rhythm of the land, which had no interest in rushing anyone. Architecturally, Karakorum reflected its era. Buildings were constructed from stone and wood, designed for durability rather than display. Streets were practical, spaces were open, and the city expanded gradually. Nothing about Karakorum suggested that it was trying to impress the future. It existed simply to function, and in doing so, it left behind an honest imprint of Mongolian urban life. Over time, Karakorum lost its role as capital and silence returned. Structures faded, walls softened, and the city transformed into a site of memory rather than activity. What remains today are ruins and foundations, resting quietly beneath open skies. These remains, along with the surrounding Orkhon Valley, have been recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There is something gently humorous about this recognition. A city built without concern for fame now holds international status simply by staying still. Karakorum teaches that importance does not always announce itself. Sometimes it lies down, becomes quiet, and waits to be noticed centuries later without ever waking anyone up. In contrast to Karakorum's ancient calm, the Genghis Khan Statue Complex belongs firmly to the modern world. Built in recent times, it stands as a contemporary tribute to the founder of the Mongol Empire. While its materials are modern, its purpose is reflective rather than dramatic. It does not recreate the past. It gestures toward it carefully and politely. At the center of the complex stands a stainless steel statue of Genghis Khan riding a horse. The statue reaches 40 meters in height and rests upon a 10-meter base. From a distance, it appears steady and composed. Up close, it invites visitors to look up briefly, then perhaps decide to sit down instead. History, after all, can be admired without neck strain. The complex includes a museum space where artifacts, traditional clothing, and historical maps are displayed. These exhibits are arranged in a clear and calm manner, allowing visitors to move slowly without feeling lost. The maps of major battles often encourage quiet pauses, not because they are confusing, but because standing still feels appropriate. There is also an observation area offering views of the surrounding landscape. The open horizon mirrors the historical openness of the steppe itself. Visitors often linger here, not speaking much, simply watching the land exist. The complex functions as both a historical site and a place of rest, which is perhaps its most thoughtful design choice. Together with Karakorum, the statue complex represents two different ways of remembering history. One preserves what remains. The other builds anew to honor memory. Neither demands excitement. Both suggest that history can be experienced slowly, comfortably, and even with a faint smile. And when the visit ends, the past remains where it is, perfectly content to let you sleep. Chapter 1: An overview of the great architectural works of the ancient Mongols. The quiet presence of Mongolian monuments. History, when spoken softly, does not demand attention. It waits. It allows the listener to arrive slowly, without urgency or effort. The architectural works of the ancient Mongols belong to this softer form of history. They do not rise from the land with noise or drama. They rest within it, shaped by time, weather, and memory, content to be noticed only when someone feels ready. The Mongols are often remembered for movement rather than stillness. Wide horizons, long journeys, and constant change define much of their historical image. Yet even within a culture shaped by travel and expansion, there were moments when permanence became necessary. From those moments came structures that anchored the Mongol story to specific places on the land. These works were not designed to impress future generations. They were built to serve the present, and in doing so, they quietly endured. Among the most significant of these works is the ancient capital of Karakorum. Founded in the 13th century, Karakorum became the political and cultural center of the Mongol Empire during a period of extraordinary reach. Despite its importance, the city did not attempt to dominate its surroundings. It was practical in form and restrained in appearance, reflecting a mindset focused on function rather than display. Karakorum was located in the Orkhon Valley, a region long valued for its strategic position and natural balance. The choice of location was deliberate, yet unassuming. From this place, administrators coordinated the affairs of a vast empire, craftsmen practiced their trades, and travelers passed through on long routes across the steppe. Daily life unfolded at a steady pace, guided by daylight and seasons rather than urgency. Architecturally, Karakorum reflected its purpose. Buildings were constructed primarily from stone and wood, materials chosen for durability rather than beauty. Streets were arranged for movement and access, not spectacle. There were no towering monuments meant to impress. Everything existed to support activity, not to celebrate it. In this way, Karakorum became a city that worked quietly, without asking to be admired. As time passed, political centers shifted, and Karakorum gradually lost its role as capital. The city did not collapse or disappear suddenly. It simply became quieter, structures aged, walls softened. The land slowly reclaimed what it had once supported. What remained were foundations and fragments, resting under open skies, carrying history without announcing it. Centuries later, these remains, along with the surrounding Orkhon Valley, were recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There is a gentle irony in this recognition. A city built without concern for legacy became globally valued precisely because it stayed still and allowed time to pass over it. Karakorum reminds us that significance does not always come from grandeur. Sometimes it comes from patience. Modern remembrance, and the gentle symbol of Genghis Khan. While Karakorum represents history shaped by time, the Genghis Khan Statue Complex represents history shaped by intention. Built in the modern era, the complex stands as a contemporary expression of remembrance. It does not attempt to recreate the past in full detail. Instead, it offers a symbolic presence, allowing visitors to reflect without pressure or expectation. At the center of the complex stands a statue of Genghis Khan riding a horse constructed from stainless steel. Rising 40 meters above the ground and supported by a 10-meter base, the statue is undeniably large, yet its presence is calm rather than imposing. It does not demand emotion. It simply stands, steady and patient, as if fully aware that memory does not need force to endure. From a distance, the statue blends gently with the sky, reflecting light and weather as they pass. From closer viewpoints, visitors often look up briefly, then decide to move on or sit down. History, after all, does not require prolonged staring. It can be appreciated comfortably, without strain, and sometimes with a small smile. The complex includes a museum space designed for slow movement and quiet observation. Artifacts, traditional clothing, and historical maps are displayed with clarity and restraint. The layout encourages visitors to wander without direction, to pause when they feel like it, and to continue when ready. There is no rush to understand everything. The space allows history to unfold gently. The maps of major campaigns often invite longer pauses, not because they overwhelm, but because they offer a moment of stillness. Lines stretch across continents, reminding viewers of vast distances, then quietly, encouraging them to rest their eyes. In these moments, the museum feels less like a place of instruction and more like a place of calm reflection. An observation area offers views across the surrounding steppe. The horizon remains wide and open, much as it has always been. Standing there, visitors often notice how little the land has changed. The complex does not compete with the landscape. It shares space with it, acknowledging that history exists within nature rather than above it. Together, Karakorum and the Genghis Khan Statue Complex illustrate two complementary ways of remembering the past. One allows memory to settle naturally through time and silence. The other creates a visible symbol to guide reflection. Neither approach seeks excitement. Both favor calm attention and gentle presence. These sites suggest that history does not need to be loud to be meaningful. It can be experienced slowly, comfortably, and even with a touch of quiet humor. One site gained recognition by fading into the earth. The other ensures remembrance by rising calmly above it. Both remain content to wait, allowing visitors to arrive when ready, listen briefly, and then rest. Chapter 2. The Birth of the Ancient Capital Karakorum. When a capital was needed. The birth of Karakorum was not marked by celebration, trumpet sounds, or dramatic declarations. It began quietly, almost politely, as many necessary things do. In the early 13th century, the Mongol Empire was expanding steadily across vast lands. Horses moved, people traveled, messages crossed enormous distances, and power stretched wider with each passing season. Amid all this movement, a simple realization slowly emerged. An empire that keeps moving still needs a place where movement can pause. Karakorum was born from this realization. It was not created as a symbol of glory, but as a practical response to growth. As the Mongol state developed, governance became more complex. Decisions needed space. Records needed consistency. Leaders needed a location where discussions could happen without being interrupted by the next long journey. A capital in this sense was not about display. It was about balance. The choice of location was careful and thoughtful. Karakorum was established in the Orkhon Valley, a region already familiar to the Mongols and deeply connected to earlier political centers in the steppe. The valley offered what the empire required: open land, access to water, and a natural sense of order. It was neither hidden nor overwhelming. It simply existed in a way that made sense, which is often the best quality a capital can have. Karakorum did not appear fully formed. There were no sudden walls rising overnight, no instant transformation from open land into city. Instead, it grew gradually. The early Mongol state expanded step by step, and Karakorum expanded with it. As needs arose, structures were added. As responsibilities increased, spaces were adjusted. The city evolved in conversation with the empire, responding rather than leading. This gradual formation gave Karakorum a calm character. It was not rushed into existence, and it did not carry the pressure of perfection. Buildings were constructed with purpose, not ambition. Stone and wood were chosen for their reliability. Layouts were shaped by use rather than theory. Paths formed where people naturally walked, and gathering spaces appeared where people naturally stopped. In these early years, Karakorum functioned as an administrative center rather than a ceremonial one. It was a place where leadership could coordinate the affairs of a growing empire, where information could arrive and depart, and where continuity could be maintained. The city supported governance quietly, without demanding recognition. It did its work and allowed the empire to do the same. Daily life in Karakorum reflected this practical approach. There was no sense of urgency beyond what was necessary. Days unfolded according to daylight and weather. People moved through the city with purpose but without haste. Conversations happened face to face, decisions took time, and silence was not considered a problem. In fact, silence was often a sign that things were functioning as they should. It is gently amusing to imagine this early capital at work. While campaigns reshaped regions far beyond the horizon, Karakorum focused on the ordinary tasks that make large systems possible. Messages were received, plans were discussed, supplies were organized. Someone likely worried about small details that seemed unimportant at the time, unaware that centuries later people would study the ground beneath their feet. As the Mongol Empire continued to expand, Karakorum adapted. It did not resist change, nor did it chase it. The city remained flexible, open to adjustment. New structures appeared as needed, and older ones were repurposed. There was no rigid blueprint forcing the city into a fixed shape. This adaptability reflected the early Mongol approach to governance, which valued responsiveness over strict formality. Karakorum's role as capital was therefore not about permanence in appearance, but permanence in function. It existed to support a moment in history when coordination mattered more than monumentality. The city did not seek to dominate the landscape. It rested within it, content to serve quietly, while the empire found its direction. By the time Karakorum was firmly established, it had become a natural part of the Mongol state. It was no longer new, and it was never dramatic. It was simply there, steady and reliable. The city's birth, marked by gradual growth and practical decisions, set the tone for its entire existence. Karakorum did not announce itself to history. It allowed history to pass through it calmly. In this way, the origin of Karakorum tells a gentle story, a capital formed not from ambition but from necessity, a city shaped not by urgency but by patience, and a beginning that even in its earliest days seemed to understand that lasting things often grow best when no one is in a hurry. Growing, settling, and becoming history. As Karakorum continued to exist as the capital of the Mongol Empire, its growth followed the same calm logic that had shaped its birth. The city did not rush to expand, and it did not attempt to redefine itself dramatically. Instead, it adjusted quietly, responding to the steady needs of an empire that was learning how to manage its own size. The expansion of Karakorum was gradual and practical. As more officials, craftsmen, and visitors passed through the city, new spaces were added where they were useful. Buildings appeared not because they were planned far in advance, but because someone needed a place to work, to store supplies, or to meet others. This kind of growth gave the city a natural rhythm. Nothing felt forced. Everything felt appropriate. Karakorum's layout reflected this steady development. There was no single grand design guiding its form. Paths emerged where people walked most often. Open areas formed where gatherings naturally occurred. The city shaped itself around human movement rather than architectural ambition. This gave Karakorum a sense of ease, as if it understood that a capital did not need to look impressive in order to function well. Materials remained simple and familiar. Stone and wood continued to dominate construction, chosen for their reliability rather than their appearance. These materials aged gently, blending into the surrounding environment instead of standing apart from it. Over time, buildings did not clash with the land. They softened into it, creating a quiet harmony between human structure and natural space. Life within Karakorum settled into a consistent pattern. The city was active but never frantic. People worked, traveled, and communicated at a pace that allowed for thought. There was time to speak, time to listen, and time to wait. In an empire known for movement, Karakorum offered stillness, and that stillness became one of its most important functions. As the Mongol Empire reached its height, Karakorum reflected that success without changing its character. More activity passed through the city, but it remained restrained. It did not grow louder. It did not become crowded with symbols of power. Instead, it continued doing what it had always done, providing a stable place where administration could happen calmly and consistently. Eventually, as history often does, priorities shifted. New centers of power emerged in other locations, closer to changing political needs. Karakorum's role as capital began to fade, not abruptly, but gently. The city was not abandoned in a moment of crisis. It was simply needed less. Activity slowed. Spaces grew quieter. Maintenance gradually gave way to memory. This transition happened over time, allowing Karakorum to settle into stillness without disruption. Buildings aged, walls weathered, paths grew less defined. The land slowly reclaimed what it had supported. What remained were foundations, fragments, and open spaces that held the shape of a city without the noise of a city. Today, walking through the remains of Karakorum feels less like visiting a ruin and more like entering a pause. The site does not demand attention. It invites calm observation. There is no urgency to understand everything. The ground tells its story quietly, through absence as much as presence. The surrounding Orkhon Valley plays an important role in this experience. Wide, open, and patient, it frames the remains of Karakorum with a sense of continuity. The landscape has changed little in its essential character. Standing there, it becomes clear that Karakorum was never meant to dominate its surroundings. It was meant to belong to them. The recognition of Karakorum and the Orkhon Valley as a UNESCO World Heritage Site acknowledges this gentle endurance. The site is valued not for grandeur, but for authenticity. It represents a way of building and governing that prioritized function, adaptability, and balance. In a world often impressed by speed and spectacle, Karakorum offers a different lesson. There is a subtle humor in the city's legacy. A capital that never tried to be impressive has become significant precisely because it remained modest. A place built to manage the present has become a window into the past. Karakorum achieved lasting importance not by standing tall, but by standing quietly. In the end, the story of Karakorum's growth and settlement is a story about patience. A city that grew slowly, served calmly, and then rested without resistance. Its journey from necessity to memory reflects a broader truth about history. Not everything enduring is loud, and not every beginning needs an ending filled with drama. Karakorum now exists in a state of gentle completion. It no longer governs an empire, but it continues to offer something valuable. It offers stillness. It offers space. And for those who arrive without hurry, it offers a reminder that even great centers of power can fade into places of rest, perfectly content to let the world move on around them. Chapter 3: Karakorum as the imperial capital of the Mongol Empire, where power moved quietly. At the height of the Mongol Empire, Karakorum held a position that was both central and surprisingly calm. It was the imperial capital, the place where authority gathered, paused, and quietly organized itself, before flowing outward again across the vast steppe. Under Genghis Khan and the rulers who followed him, Karakorum became the heart of administration for an empire that stretched farther than most people of the time could imagine. Yet the city itself remained gentle in its presence. Karakorum did not resemble what we might expect from a capital today. There were no towering skylines, no constant noise, and no visible rush. Instead, the city functioned with a steady rhythm, one shaped by conversation, routine, and patience. Power did not announce itself loudly in Karakorum. It simply existed there, working through daily tasks and careful decisions. As the capital, Karakorum hosted the essential activities of governance. Officials gathered to manage territories that lay far beyond the horizon. Messengers arrived from distant regions and departed again, carrying information and instructions across immense distances. These movements gave the city a sense of purpose, but not chaos. Everything happened at a pace that allowed for understanding rather than urgency. The role of Karakorum was to provide stability. In an empire defined by motion, the capital needed to be still. Leadership depended on having a place where plans could be discussed without interruption and records could be maintained with consistency. Karakorum offered this steadiness. It was not dramatic, but it was dependable, and that made it invaluable. The physical environment of the city reflected this role. Buildings were practical, arranged for use rather than display. Spaces were designed to support meetings, coordination, and daily administration. Paths connected important areas efficiently without unnecessary complexity. The city did not try to impress visitors. It focused on functioning well, which in many ways is more difficult. Compared to modern capitals, Karakorum would likely seem quiet, even uneventful. There were no crowds rushing between appointments, no constant signals demanding attention. Silence was common, and it was respected. In Karakorum, quiet did not mean inactivity. It meant that things were proceeding as they should. There is something gently humorous in imagining the capital at work during this time. While armies moved across continents and history unfolded dramatically elsewhere, Karakorum focused on details. Someone ensured that messages were delivered. Someone organized supplies. Someone waited calmly for a meeting to begin. These small actions, repeated day after day, were what allowed the empire to function smoothly. As the Mongol Empire flourished, Karakorum remained steady at its center. Success did not change the city's character. It did not grow louder or more imposing. Instead, it became more familiar. Routines settled in. The capital became a place where authority felt normal rather than overwhelming. The city's importance was understood by those who used it, even if it was not immediately visible to outsiders. Karakorum did not need monuments to announce its status. Its role as the capital was evident in the way people relied on it. Decisions passed through it. Information rested there briefly before moving on. The city served as a quiet anchor for a rapidly changing world. Under successive rulers, Karakorum continued to perform this role with consistency. Leadership changed, priorities shifted, but the city adapted without losing its calm rhythm. This adaptability allowed the capital to remain effective even as the empire evolved. Karakorum did not resist change. It absorbed it gently. In this way, Karakorum demonstrated a particular style of governance. Power did not need to be loud to be effective. Authority did not require constant display. The capital showed that organization, patience, and clarity could support even the largest empire. By fulfilling its role quietly, Karakorum became one of the most important places in Mongolia during its time. Its significance lay not in what it looked like, but in what it allowed to happen. The city held the empire together without drawing attention to itself. This calm effectiveness is what defines Karakorum's legacy as an imperial capital. It governed without spectacle, organized without urgency, and supported power without strain. Even now, when its role has long passed, the idea of such a quiet center remains soothing to imagine. A place where history paused, breathed, and then continued on its way. Daily governance and the quiet rhythm of a capital. As Karakorum continued to serve as the imperial capital, its true strength revealed itself not through grandeur, but through routine. Day after day, the city carried out the steady work of governance, allowing the Mongol Empire to function across immense distances. This work was rarely dramatic. It unfolded through conversations, written records, and careful coordination, all supported by the calm environment Karakorum provided. Life in the capital followed a predictable rhythm. Officials arrived, met, discussed matters of administration, and then departed. Messengers came from far regions, sometimes tired from long journeys, and rested briefly before continuing onward. Others left Karakorum carrying decisions that would shape distant territories. These movements gave the city a quiet sense of motion, like a slow tide, rather than a rushing current. The absence of urgency was one of Karakorum's most defining qualities. Governance required clarity, and clarity required time. In the capital, there was space to think before acting. Silence was not seen as delay, but as preparation. This atmosphere allowed leaders to manage complexity without being overwhelmed by it. The physical layout of Karakorum supported this way of working. Open areas made movement easy. Buildings were arranged to encourage access rather than hierarchy. Nothing in the city forced attention upward or outward. Instead, everything remained grounded. This design reinforced the idea that power flowed through people and processes, not through structures demanding admiration. Compared to modern capitals, Karakorum would appear almost unusually calm. There were no crowded streets filled with constant movement. There were no visible symbols insisting on importance. Yet this quietness was exactly what made the city effective. By remaining composed, Karakorum allowed the empire's energy to be directed outward rather than inward. There is a subtle humor in this contrast. One of the largest empires in history was governed from a capital that preferred to keep things simple. While vast territories changed hands elsewhere, Karakorum focused on organization and continuity. The city did not try to match the drama of events beyond its walls. It trusted that steady work was enough. As years passed, Karakorum became deeply associated with the idea of centralized rule. It represented stability in a world defined by movement. For rulers and officials alike, the capital offered a familiar point of reference. No matter how far the empire extended, Karakorum remained the place where plans could be brought together and understood. This sense of continuity became especially important as leadership transitioned from Genghis Khan to his successors. Each ruler brought new priorities, yet the city absorbed these changes without disruption. Karakorum did not impose its own identity on governance. It adapted quietly, maintaining its supportive role regardless of who held authority. Over time, however, the needs of the empire evolved. New political centers emerged, shaped by shifting priorities and geography. Karakorum's role as capital began to lessen. This change was not abrupt or dramatic. The city did not lose its importance overnight. Instead, activity gradually moved elsewhere, and Karakorum settled into a quieter phase. This transition was gentle. The routines that once filled the city slowed. Spaces that had hosted meetings grew quieter. The capital did not resist this change. It accepted it with the same calm that had defined its years of service. In doing so, Karakorum avoided the turmoil that often accompanies the decline of political centers. Today, when we reflect on Karakorum's time as the imperial capital, we see more than a historical role. We see an example of how power can operate without noise. The city demonstrates that effective governance does not require constant display or urgency. It requires structure, patience, and trust in steady processes. Karakorum's legacy lies in this quiet effectiveness. It held the Mongol Empire together during a critical period, not by dominating attention, but by offering a stable place where decisions could rest before moving forward. Its importance was felt through function rather than form. In the end, Karakorum stands as a reminder that even the most powerful empires benefit from calm centers, a place where history can pause, breathe, and organize itself before continuing on. As an imperial capital, Karakorum fulfilled this role with restraint and balance, leaving behind a story that remains soothing to revisit. By governing quietly, Karakorum allowed the empire's energy to remain focused on expansion and movement elsewhere. The city did not seek recognition. It accepted responsibility. And perhaps that is why, centuries later, its memory still feels gentle, steady, and easy to listen to, even as the listener slowly drifts toward rest. Chapter 4: Architecture and Space of Karakorum. Stone, wood, and the shape of daily life. The architecture of Karakorum reflected a medieval understanding of space that valued purpose over display and calm over spectacle. The city did not attempt to impress the land around it, nor did it try to stand above the vast steppe. Instead, it settled into the landscape quietly, shaped by practical needs and long use. Built mainly from stone and wood, Karakorum relied on materials that were familiar, durable, and well-suited to the environment. These choices gave the city a grounded presence, one that felt stable without feeling heavy. Stone provided strength and endurance. It formed foundations and walls that could withstand time, weather, and constant use. Wood added flexibility and warmth, allowing structures to be repaired, adjusted, or expanded as needed. Together, these materials created buildings that were neither fragile nor rigid. They suited a society in transition, one moving gradually from a fully nomadic life toward more settled patterns without losing its connection to movement and adaptability. Residential spaces in Karakorum were designed for living rather than display. Homes offered shelter, warmth, and shared areas for daily routines. Their layout considered wind, sunlight, and seasonal change. Nothing was built excessively, and nothing was purely decorative. Each structure existed because it served a clear purpose, even if that purpose was simply to make daily life more comfortable and predictable. Administrative buildings followed the same restrained approach. Spaces used for governance were arranged to support conversation, record-keeping, and coordination. Rooms encouraged gathering without crowding, allowing discussions to unfold calmly. Authority in Karakorum did not rely on grand halls or imposing facades. It existed through function, routine, and the steady flow of work. Between residential and administrative areas, shared spaces connected the city naturally. Paths formed where people walked most often. Open areas appeared where people paused, met, or waited. These common spaces became part of daily rhythm, supporting interaction without pressure. Movement through the city felt unforced, guided by habit rather than instruction. One of the most defining features of Karakorum's architecture was its openness. The city never fully enclosed itself. Open land remained integrated into the urban layout, reflecting the Mongols' long relationship with wide horizons and open movement. This openness prevented the city from feeling confined and allowed air, light, and space to remain part of everyday experience. The balance between built structures and open areas gave Karakorum a sense of ease. Architecture did not dominate life. It supported it quietly. People moved between stone, wood, and open ground without clear boundaries, reinforcing the idea that settlement did not mean separation from the land. There is a subtle humor in this architectural modesty. A city that once supported one of the largest empires in history did so without dramatic buildings or overwhelming monuments. While history elsewhere often announced itself loudly, Karakorum preferred cooperation between space and routine. This modest approach also contributed to the city's longevity. Buildings were constructed for long use rather than short display. When political importance shifted, the architecture did not become meaningless overnight. Structures continued to exist, aging gently, allowing time and weather to leave their marks. Even as centuries passed, the layout of Karakorum remained readable. Foundations, pathways, and open areas still suggested how life once moved through the city. The architecture accepted change without resistance, becoming quieter rather than collapsing. In this way, the architecture and space of Karakorum reveal a thoughtful approach to building. The city was designed to be used, not admired. Its spaces supported daily life, governance, and community without demanding attention. Karakorum did not try to become a monument to itself. It simply worked, and in doing so, it endured. This quiet endurance is perhaps the most lasting architectural quality of Karakorum. Built for people who never imagined their city as a future ruin, its spaces remain meaningful precisely because they were never built for memory. They were built for life. And when life moved on, they rested without protest. The arrangement of space within Karakorum also reflected a careful understanding of social balance. Areas of work, rest, and movement were not sharply divided, allowing daily activities to flow into one another. This blending reduced tension and encouraged cooperation. People could move from home to work to shared spaces without abrupt transitions, creating a sense of continuity throughout the city. Such spatial continuity was especially important for a population adapting to settled life. The city allowed its residents to remain comfortable with openness while learning the rhythms of permanence. Architecture did not force change. It supported it gently, giving people time to adjust. Because of this, Karakorum never felt rigid. Its spaces were stable but forgiving. They allowed life to happen naturally without imposing strict patterns. This quality explains why the city's remains still communicate calm. Even in silence, the architecture suggests patience, balance, and a quiet understanding of human need. In its measured layout, Karakorum reminds us that architecture can soothe the mind, guide the body gently, and remain kind to those who pass through it over long centuries. Shared spaces, long use, and quiet endurance. Beyond individual buildings, the true character of Karakorum emerged from how its spaces worked together. Architecture was not experienced as isolated structures, but as a continuous environment that guided movement, interaction, and rest. The city functioned as a whole, with each area supporting the others in subtle and thoughtful ways. This sense of cohesion made Karakorum feel lived in rather than designed, shaped by use more than by plan. Public spaces played an important role in this balance. Open areas allowed people to gather without formality. These spaces were not decorated or marked as special. They became meaningful simply because people used them. Meetings happened there. Conversations unfolded, and moments of waiting passed quietly. In this way, shared space became part of daily life rather than an interruption to it. The placement of these common areas reflected an understanding of human rhythm. They appeared where paths crossed or where activity naturally slowed. This allowed people to pause without intention. Rest was built into movement, and movement flowed naturally into rest. Such design gently supported well-being, even if no one at the time would have described it that way. Karakorum's architecture also accommodated different layers of life. Areas of work, residence, and gathering existed close enough to remain connected, yet far enough apart to avoid crowding. This balance reduced strain and encouraged cooperation. People could move easily between roles without feeling confined or overwhelmed by the city around them. The use of stone and wood extended into these shared spaces as well. Materials remained consistent, reinforcing a sense of unity. Surfaces aged together, weathering at similar rates, allowing the city to change as one body rather than as scattered fragments. This consistency gave Karakorum a calm visual rhythm that matched its social rhythm. Over long periods of use, this architectural approach proved resilient. Buildings were repaired rather than replaced. Spaces were adjusted rather than abandoned. The city responded to change without losing coherence. This adaptability allowed Karakorum to serve many generations without dramatic transformation. As the Mongol Empire evolved, Karakorum's architecture quietly absorbed new demands. Increased activity did not lead to overcrowding. The openness of space allowed the city to expand its function without expanding aggressively. Architecture remained supportive rather than restrictive, offering room for growth without forcing it. When Karakorum eventually lost its role as an active capital, its spaces transitioned gently. Areas that once held frequent activity became quieter. Paths saw fewer footsteps, yet nothing felt abrupt. The city's design allowed it to slow down naturally, easing into stillness rather than collapsing into ruin. This gradual shift reveals another strength of Karakorum's architecture. Built for long use rather than short prominence, it did not depend on constant attention to remain meaningful. Even without active governance, the city retained clarity. Its spaces continued to communicate order, purpose, and calm. Today, the remaining layout of Karakorum still suggests how people once moved, gathered, and rested. Foundations and open areas speak quietly of patterns rather than events. Visitors often feel a sense of peace rather than loss. The city does not insist on remembrance. It allows memory to arrive gently. There is a quiet humor in how well this medieval architecture adapted to time. Designed without thought of preservation, it became preserved precisely because it never tried to stand out. By blending into the land and respecting human rhythm, Karakorum avoided the fragility that often accompanies grand design. The surrounding landscape continues to play a role in this experience. Wide horizons frame the remains, reinforcing the original relationship between built space and open land. The city feels held rather than isolated. Architecture and nature remain in conversation, just as they were centuries ago. In reflecting on Karakorum's architecture, one notices how little effort it makes to be impressive. Its strength lies in its kindness to daily life. Spaces were arranged to support people, not to dominate them. This gentle priority shaped a city that could endure change without losing itself. Karakorum demonstrates that architecture can guide behavior without control, encourage calm without instruction, and support community without spectacle. Its spaces allowed people to live, work, and govern without constant tension. In doing so, the city became a place of balance rather than display. Even in ruin, Karakorum continues this role. Its remaining spaces invite slow movement, quiet observation, and unhurried reflection. There is no need to rush through the site. The architecture encourages stillness, as if it remembers the pace of those who once used it. The endurance of Karakorum's architecture lies not in what remains standing, but in how it still shapes experience. Stone and wood, space and openness continue to work together. The city rests, but it does not disappear. In the end, the architecture and space of Karakorum offer a gentle conclusion. Built for long use, shaped by patience, and guided by human rhythm, the city fulfilled its purpose without excess. When its time passed, it accepted rest with grace, leaving behind a landscape that still feels calm, balanced, and quietly welcoming. Chapter 5: Relics of Karakorum and their heritage value. From imperial capital to historical remains. Over time, Karakorum gradually stepped away from its role as the capital of the Mongol Empire and entered a quieter chapter of existence. The change did not happen suddenly, nor was it marked by destruction or urgency. Instead, it unfolded slowly, allowing the city to transform from a center of administration into a landscape of memory. This gentle transition shaped Karakorum into what it is today. Historical site where traces of the past rest calmly beneath open skies. As political priorities shifted and new centers of power emerged elsewhere, Karakorum's daily activity decreased. Meetings became less frequent. Messengers arrived less often. The routines that once filled the city softened and faded, yet the city itself remained. Buildings were not torn down in haste. Spaces were not abandoned in chaos. Karakorum simply grew quieter, accepting change without resistance. The physical remains of Karakorum tell this story clearly. Foundations mark where buildings once stood. Stone fragments and worn surfaces hint at walls, paths, and rooms that supported everyday life. Open spaces reveal how movement once flowed through the city. These remnants do not overwhelm the visitor. They invite observation rather than explanation, encouraging a slow and thoughtful experience. Unlike reconstructed sites that attempt to recreate the past, Karakorum offers something more subtle. It presents absence as much as presence. What is no longer there becomes part of the story. Empty ground suggests former activity. Silence replaces conversation. This balance allows visitors to imagine rather than be instructed, to feel rather than be told. The surrounding Orkhon Valley plays an essential role in preserving this atmosphere. Wide horizons and gentle landscapes frame the remains of Karakorum, reinforcing the sense that the city belongs to its environment. The valley has changed little in its fundamental character, allowing the site to feel continuous rather than isolated. Nature and history remain in quiet partnership. Walking through the site today often feels less like visiting ruins and more like entering a pause. There is no urgency to move quickly or to understand everything at once. The remains encourage stillness. They allow time to slow down. This calm quality is part of Karakorum's heritage value, offering an experience that is reflective rather than overwhelming. The transformation of Karakorum into a historical site did not erase its importance. Instead, it shifted the way that importance is expressed. The city no longer governs an empire, but it continues to communicate ideas about balance, patience, and endurance. Its remains offer insight into how the Mongols built, lived, and adapted over time. One of the quiet strengths of Karakorum as a heritage site is its honesty. The remains have not been polished into spectacle. They retain irregularities, gaps, and weathered surfaces. This authenticity allows history to feel close and human. Visitors encounter the past as it has arrived in the present, shaped by centuries rather than by restoration alone. There is also a subtle humor in this transformation. A city once central to global events now exists as a place of calm reflection. Built to support movement and expansion, it now supports rest and observation. In this way, Karakorum continues to serve people, just in a different and gentler role. The recognition of Karakorum as a site of historical importance acknowledges this enduring value. The city's remains offer more than visual interest. They provide context. They help future generations understand how an empire once organized itself without relying on excess or display. As a historical site, Karakorum invites a different kind of attention. It does not ask visitors to admire grandeur. It encourages them to notice details, spaces, and relationships. This approach aligns naturally with the way the city was originally built and used. The passage of time has become part of Karakorum's structure. Weather, erosion, and quiet growth have shaped the remains alongside human hands. This shared authorship gives the site depth. History here is not frozen. It continues gently. Through its foundations, ruins, and open spaces, Karakorum offers a lasting record of Mongolian history. It preserves not only events, but ways of living and thinking. The site stands as a reminder that significance does not disappear when activity ends. Sometimes it simply changes form. In its current state, Karakorum does not demand interpretation. It allows meaning to emerge slowly. Visitors can move at their own pace, guided by curiosity rather than instruction. This freedom is part of the site's quiet appeal. The journey from capital to relic has given Karakorum a new kind of presence. No longer defined by power, it is defined by memory. Its remains hold stories without insisting they be heard. This gentle restraint is what makes Karakorum's historical value both enduring and deeply human. In this way, the site continues to teach without speaking loudly, offering lessons through space, silence, and the slow passing of time itself. These qualities make Karakorum a place where history feels gentle, patient, and willing to wait for anyone who arrives slowly, without demanding attention or rushing understanding at any moment, at all. World heritage, memory, and quiet continuation. The recognition of Karakorum and the surrounding Orkhon Valley as a UNESCO World Heritage Site reflects a conversation with time. This designation does not arrive with excitement or urgency. Instead, it acknowledges that what remains here carries meaning beyond borders and generations. Karakorum is valued not because it stands complete, but because it endures honestly, offering insight into a distant past without demanding interpretation. The heritage value of Karakorum lies largely in what it preserves unintentionally. The city was not built to become a monument. Its structures were created for use, not remembrance. Yet precisely because of this, the remains feel genuine. Foundations, ruins, and open spaces record choices made for practical reasons, revealing how the Mongols organized life, governance, and movement during the height of their empire. UNESCO recognition affirms that these quiet traces matter. They provide evidence of cultural development, adaptation, and continuity. Karakorum, together with the Orkhon Valley, represents a landscape where human activity and natural environment remained in balance. The valley frames the city's remains gently, reinforcing the sense that history here unfolded in cooperation with nature rather than in opposition to it. Visitors to the site often notice how little effort Karakorum makes to impress. There are no towering reconstructions or dramatic displays. Instead, the experience is shaped by space, light, and silence. This restraint encourages a slower pace. People walk, pause, and reflect without instruction. The heritage value of Karakorum is felt rather than explained. The surrounding valley deepens this experience. Wide grasslands, open skies, and distant horizons mirror the historical openness of Mongol life. The city's remains appear as part of a broader landscape, not as an isolated attraction. This continuity helps visitors understand Karakorum as a living part of its environment, even in its current quiet state. One of the most meaningful aspects of Karakorum's heritage is its ability to communicate without words. The absence of structures speaks alongside what remains. Empty spaces suggest former gatherings. Worn ground hints at repeated movement. Silence becomes a historical source, offering information through atmosphere rather than narration. There is a gentle humor in how well this approach works. A city once central to imperial administration now teaches through stillness. By doing very little, it reveals a great deal. Karakorum demonstrates that preservation does not always require reconstruction. Sometimes allowing things to rest is enough. The World Heritage designation also protects the site's character. It ensures that Karakorum remains a place of balance rather than transformation. Conservation efforts focus on maintaining authenticity, preventing overdevelopment, and respecting the relationship between ruins and landscape. This careful stewardship aligns with the spirit of the city itself. Through this protection, Karakorum continues to serve a purpose. It invites learning without pressure. Scholars, visitors, and local communities engage with the site in different ways, all guided by the same quiet environment. The city supports understanding through patience rather than instruction. Karakorum's heritage value also lies in its ability to connect past and present gently. Modern visitors do not encounter a frozen moment in time. Instead, they encounter a place shaped by centuries of change. Weather, growth, and human presence have all contributed to what remains. History here feels layered rather than fixed. This layered quality makes Karakorum approachable. People are not overwhelmed by detail or narrative. They are free to experience the site according to their own pace and interest. Some linger, Some move on quickly. Both responses feel appropriate. The site does not demand a particular reaction. In a world often focused on speed and spectacle, Karakorum offers a different model of heritage. It suggests that significance can exist quietly. That understanding can come slowly. That preservation does not always mean restoration, and memory does not always require explanation. The Orkhon Valley strengthens this message. Its wide openness emphasizes continuity rather than interruption. The land holds the city gently, as it has for centuries. Together, the valley and the ruins form a heritage landscape that feels complete without being crowded. As time continues, Karakorum will likely change further. Stones will weather, surfaces will soften. Yet this change is part of its story. The site does not resist time, it incorporates it. This acceptance gives Karakorum a living quality, even as it remains a relic. Ultimately, the heritage value of Karakorum lies in its calm endurance. Built solidly for use, it lasted long enough to become history. Recognized now as a World Heritage Site, it continues to offer insight without insistence. Karakorum teaches that building well and then allowing time to pass can be a reasonable decision. In its current role, Karakorum no longer governs or organizes. It observes. It holds memory gently and shares it quietly. The city remains present without interruption, offering a place where history can be felt rather than examined. Through recognition, protection, and quiet presence, Karakorum and the Orkhon Valley continue their conversation with time. They allow it to continue slowly, trusting that those who arrive will listen, rest, and understand in their own moment. Chapter 6: The Emergence of the Genghis Khan Statue Complex. A modern monument enters history. Unlike the ancient city of Karakorum, the Genghis Khan Statue Complex belongs to the modern world. Its appearance marks a different moment in Mongolian history, one shaped not by medieval necessity but by contemporary remembrance. The complex was built with clear intention, to honor the founder of the Mongol Empire and to present national history in a form that can be seen, visited, and absorbed. The decision to create such a monument reflects a changing relationship with the past. Centuries after the era of empire, Mongolia sought a visible way to connect present identity with historical origins. Rather than relying only on ruins and texts, the statue complex offers a direct visual presence. It stands not as a replacement for history, but as a companion to it. At the center of the complex rises a large statue of Genghis Khan on horseback. Made of stainless steel, the statue immediately distinguishes itself from older monuments built of stone or earth. Steel reflects light, sky, and weather, allowing the monument to change subtly throughout the day. In this way, the statue feels less fixed and more responsive, as if history itself is quietly breathing. The scale of the statue is impressive, yet its purpose is not to overwhelm. Standing tall against the open landscape, it invites attention without demanding it. Visitors may look up, then relax their gaze, understanding that admiration does not require effort. History here is presented as something steady and approachable. The choice of stainless steel carries practical meaning as well. Durable and resistant to time, it suggests an intention for long memory. While ancient structures relied on stone and wood to endure, this modern monument relies on metal. There is a gentle humor in this contrast. Where history once trusted earth and patience, it now adds a layer of engineering to ensure it stays remembered. The complex surrounding the statue was designed as more than a single object. It functions as a space for learning, movement, and pause. Paths guide visitors calmly. Open areas provide room to stop and look around. The experience is structured without feeling controlled, allowing people to engage at their own pace. Unlike Karakorum, which became a heritage site through time and silence, the statue complex announces its role clearly. It was built to be visited. Yet even with this clarity, the atmosphere remains gentle. There is no urgency to see everything at once. The space encourages slow exploration. The emergence of the statue complex also reflects modern Mongolia's desire to communicate history beyond academic settings. Visual storytelling plays an important role. A single figure on horseback can express leadership, movement, and origin without explanation. This directness makes history accessible to visitors of all backgrounds. Despite its modern construction, the complex avoids excessive decoration. The statue's form is clear and the surrounding space remains open. This restraint allows the monument to feel grounded rather than theatrical. It respects the landscape instead of competing with it. There is a quiet balance between symbolism and simplicity. The monument honors a historical figure, yet it does not attempt to recreate the past in detail. It offers a symbol rather than a scene. In doing so, it leaves room for imagination. The location of the complex reinforces this balance. Set within open land, it mirrors the wide horizons associated with Mongolian history. It stands within the space, allowing sky and distance to remain visible. This openness connects the modern monument to older traditions of landscape awareness. Visitors often notice the contrast between the ancient ruins of Karakorum and the polished surface of the statue. One speaks through fragments, the other speaks through presence. Together, they illustrate different ways of remembering. One allows time to shape memory, the other uses design to guide it. The statue complex does not attempt to replace older sites. Instead, it adds another layer to historical understanding. It acknowledges that memory evolves. As societies change, so do the ways they honor their past. In this sense, the emergence of the Genghis Khan Statue Complex represents a conversation between eras. Medieval history and modern design meet without conflict. The result is a monument that feels contemporary yet respectful. As visitors walk through the complex, they often experience a blend of curiosity and calm. The monument does not rush them. It stands patiently, offering itself as a point of reference rather than a demand. The statue's presence demonstrates that modern monuments can be firm without being aggressive. It shows that remembrance can be solid without being heavy. In this way, the complex introduces itself to history gently, confident that time will do the rest. The emergence of this monument suggests that history sometimes benefits from new materials. Steel, in this case, becomes a tool for memory. It does not replace the past. It supports it. In its quiet confidence, the Genghis Khan Statue Complex enters the historical landscape not as an interruption, but as an addition. It stands calmly, prepared to wait, knowing that remembrance, like history itself, unfolds slowly. Memory, experience, and modern remembrance. While the Genghis Khan Statue Complex is modern in construction, its purpose reaches backward into deep history. The complex does not simply display a monument. It creates an experience shaped by movement, observation, and reflection. Visitors do not arrive only to see a statue. They arrive to spend time with an idea of history that has been translated into space. The experience begins with approach. From a distance, the statue appears gradually, rising above the land without suddenness. This slow reveal mirrors the way understanding often forms. Nothing demands immediate reaction. The monument allows the visitor to arrive calmly, adjusting pace and attention naturally. As people move closer, details become clearer, yet the overall impression remains simple. The stainless steel surface reflects sky and weather, reminding visitors that this structure exists within the present moment. Clouds pass. Light shifts. History here is not locked in the past. It remains gently connected to the now. The interior spaces of the complex further shape this experience. Exhibits, displays, and artifacts are arranged to encourage wandering rather than instruction. Visitors can pause, continue, or return without pressure. Information is available, but it does not overwhelm. The design respects different levels of curiosity and allows engagement to remain personal. Maps, historical references, and visual elements present the story of the Mongol Empire clearly. They offer context without urgency. Visitors can absorb as much or as little as they choose. This flexibility aligns with the complex's overall tone, which favors calm understanding over dramatic emphasis. One of the defining qualities of the complex is its openness. Observation areas allow wide views of the surrounding landscape. Standing there, visitors are reminded that history unfolded across open land, not within enclosed walls alone. The horizon remains visible, reinforcing continuity between past movement and present stillness. There is a subtle humor in how effectively this modern complex communicates. Instead of overwhelming visitors with grandeur, it relies on clarity and restraint. A large statue, a quiet space, and time to walk are enough. History does not shout. It stands patiently and waits. The complex also serves an educational role, particularly for younger generations. By presenting history visually and spatially, it becomes approachable. Learning happens through presence rather than instruction. The statue becomes a reference point, anchoring stories that might otherwise feel distant. At the same time, the complex avoids turning history into spectacle. It does not attempt to recreate battles or dramatize events. Instead, it focuses on remembrance. The figure of Genghis Khan is presented as a symbol of origin and continuity rather than conquest alone. This balanced approach allows reflection without tension. The contrast between the statue complex and ancient sites like Karakorum remains meaningful. One site speaks through absence and erosion. The other speaks through presence and polish. Together, they demonstrate that memory can be preserved in different ways, each appropriate to its time. Modern remembrance, as seen here, accepts that materials change. Where stone once carried memory, steel now does. This shift does not diminish history. It extends it. The choice of stainless steel suggests a desire for durability, acknowledging that modern memory also wishes to endure. Visitors often leave the complex with a sense of calm rather than excitement. The experience does not exhaust attention, it settles it. The monument offers something firm yet gentle, allowing history to be felt without effort. The surrounding environment contributes to this atmosphere. Open land, wide skies, and quiet distances soften the monument's scale. The statue remains prominent without dominating. Nature continues to share space with memory. In this way, the complex becomes a place of balance. It honors the past while remaining rooted in the present. It welcomes visitors without directing them. It presents history without closing interpretation. As time passes, the statue complex will also age. Steel will weather, surfaces will change. This process will become part of its story. The monument does not resist time, it expects it. Ultimately, the Genghis Khan Statue Complex represents a modern response to historical remembrance. It suggests that memory can be strengthened through clarity rather than excess, that history can be honored through space and stillness. The complex does not compete with ancient ruins, it complements them. Together they form a broader landscape of memory, one shaped by both patience and intention. In its quiet way, the statue complex shows that history sometimes needs new forms to remain present. Steel, space, and openness work together to support remembrance. By offering a place where visitors can move slowly, look freely, and think gently, the complex fulfills its role. It does not rush understanding. It allows it to arrive. The Genghis Khan Statue Complex stands as a reminder that remembering is an active process. It requires care, space, and time. This modern monument provides all three without asking for more. Through calm design and thoughtful restraint, the complex ensures that history remains accessible. In doing so, it adds another quiet chapter to Mongolia's long historical narrative, confident that memory, when given space, will endure gently. Chapter 7. The Architectural Scale of the Statue. Height, presence, and first impressions. At the center of the Genghis Khan Statue Complex stands the statue itself, calm, tall, and unmistakably present. Rising 40 meters into the air and placed upon a 10-meter base, the figure of Genghis Khan on horseback dominates the surrounding landscape with quiet confidence. It does not rush the viewer. It simply stands, allowing its scale to be noticed gradually now. The first impression of the statue often begins from a distance. Long before details become visible, the silhouette appears against the sky. From far away, the monument feels almost gentle, like a familiar landmark waiting patiently. Its height allows it to be seen across open land, reminding visitors that scale does not always need to announce itself loudly to be effective. As one approaches, the size becomes more apparent. 40 meters is not a number that requires explanation. The body understands it instinctively. Steps slow slightly. The neck tilts upward. Attention adjusts. This physical response is part of the design, even if unintended. The statue encourages awareness through posture, gently reminding visitors that history can be large without being aggressive. The 10-meter base beneath the statue plays an important role in this experience. It lifts the figure without separating it from the ground entirely. The base creates distance but not isolation. Visitors remain connected to the monument, able to observe it closely while still respecting its scale. Material choice amplifies this presence. Stainless steel reflects light, sky, and movement, softening the monument's mass. Rather than appearing heavy, the statue changes with the day. Morning light feels different from evening light. Clouds pass, shadows shift, and the surface responds, allowing the eyes to rest even while looking upward. Standing close to the statue can be an interesting experience. Looking up for too long may cause the neck to tire slightly, a reminder that even admiration benefits from moderation. There is a quiet humor in this detail. The statue teaches without words that history is best observed with balance, not strain. The horse beneath the figure adds to the sense of motion and scale. Though frozen in metal, it suggests movement rather than stillness. The raised posture creates vertical energy, guiding the viewer's gaze upward naturally. This upward flow reinforces the monument's height while maintaining harmony in its proportions. Despite its size, the statue avoids intimidation. The figure does not lean forward aggressively or gesture dramatically. Its posture remains composed. This restraint allows the scale to feel reassuring rather than overwhelming. Visitors can stand beneath it without feeling diminished. The open surroundings further shape perception. With no dense buildings nearby, the statue breathes within space. The landscape frames it gently, preventing the height from becoming oppressive. Distance and openness work together to make the monument feel integrated rather than imposed. The scale of the statue also serves a symbolic purpose. Height here represents remembrance rather than dominance. The monument does not rise to control the land, but to remain visible across it. Its presence signals memory, not command. For many visitors, the experience of scale changes over time. Initial awe softens into familiarity. After a few moments, the height becomes part of the environment. The body relaxes, the eyes adjust. What once felt enormous begins to feel steady. This transition is important. It allows the monument to move from spectacle to companion. The statue becomes something to share space with rather than something to confront. Scale, in this sense, becomes a tool for comfort rather than intimidation. There is also an educational element in this physical experience. Visitors do not simply learn about size through numbers, they feel it. This embodied understanding makes history more memorable without requiring explanation. In the end, the architectural scale of the statue functions quietly. It draws attention, then releases it. It invites observation, then allows rest. The monument stands tall, but it does not insist on constant looking. Through height, material, and proportion, the statue teaches a subtle lesson. History can be large, visible, and lasting, while still allowing the viewer to remain comfortable. In this way, scale becomes not a challenge, but an invitation to observe gently here. This balance between visibility and comfort defines the statue's success, ensuring that its impressive dimensions remain welcoming rather than demanding for everyone who arrives. It stands tall enough to be remembered, yet calm enough to be visited slowly, without hurry or pressure, always gently here. Seeing from afar and standing nearby, the architectural scale of the statue reveals itself differently depending on distance. From far away, the monument feels calm and steady, almost like part of the horizon. It rises clearly above the land, yet it does not interrupt the view. Instead, it becomes a point of orientation, something the eye returns to gently while moving through open space. Seen from afar, the height of the statue feels reassuring rather than dramatic. The figure appears composed, balanced against the sky. There is no urgency in the way it presents itself. It waits. This distant view allows visitors to become familiar with the monument before ever standing beneath it. The scale is introduced slowly, without pressure. As people move closer, perception changes again. Details emerge, edges sharpen, and the relationship between human body and monument becomes clearer. The statue grows taller, not because it has changed, but because the viewer has. Distance shortens and awareness increases. This gradual shift creates a smooth transition between observation and presence. Standing nearby brings a different experience altogether. The body becomes part of the measurement. Looking up requires effort, and this effort is instructive. It reminds visitors that large structures invite brief admiration, not constant attention. There is wisdom in stepping back, in allowing the eyes and neck to rest. This physical interaction is part of the monument's quiet lesson. History, when made visible at such scale, does not ask to be consumed all at once. It benefits from pauses. The statue's height encourages these pauses naturally, guiding visitors to look, then relax, then look again. The 10-meter base contributes to this rhythm. It creates a clear boundary between viewer and monument without creating separation. People remain close enough to feel connection, yet far enough to maintain comfort. This balance prevents the scale from becoming overwhelming. Light plays an important role at close range. Reflections move across the stainless steel surface, softening edges and reducing contrast. The monument feels lighter than its size might suggest. This visual softness helps maintain calm, even when standing directly beneath such a tall structure. The horse and rider together shape how height is perceived. The upward movement of the form draws the eye smoothly rather than sharply. Lines flow upward, encouraging gentle observation instead of sudden focus. The design supports comfort even within impressive dimensions. Around the statue, space remains open. There are no tight enclosures or crowded pathways. This openness allows visitors to choose their distance freely. Some prefer to remain far enough to see the entire form. Others move closer, curious about details. Both choices feel natural and unforced. This freedom of movement is essential. Scale can feel oppressive when choice is removed. Here, choice is preserved. The monument does not trap attention. It offers itself, then steps back. Over time, visitors often notice that the statue feels less large than expected. Familiarity reduces tension. The body adapts. What once seemed towering becomes steady. This adjustment is part of the design's success. The monument allows comfort to grow alongside awareness. The scale also functions as a visual anchor. From many points within the complex, the statue remains visible. It helps orient movement, offering a consistent reference point. This subtle guidance reduces confusion and supports a relaxed experience. There is gentle humor in the way the statue teaches moderation. Look too long and the neck complains. Step back and comfort returns. History, the monument seems to suggest, is best appreciated in reasonable portions. From different angles, the statue changes character slightly. Sometimes it feels more distant, sometimes more present. This variation keeps the experience fresh without becoming stimulating. The scale remains constant, but perception shifts calmly. In this way, architectural scale becomes a tool for pacing. It controls energy without force. It encourages attention without demand. The statue guides visitors toward a balanced way of seeing. Ultimately, the scale of the monument succeeds because it respects the human body. It acknowledges limits gently. Height is offered, not imposed. Presence is clear, but never urgent. By allowing distance, encouraging movement, and softening mass through material and design, the statue creates an experience that remains comfortable over time. The scale supports memory without strain. As visitors leave the space, the statue gradually returns to the horizon. Its height becomes part of the landscape once more. The body relaxes, the mind settles. The monument remains patient and visible, ready to be noticed again from afar. Chapter 8: The Museum Space Within the Complex. walking through history at a gentle pace. Inside the Genghis Khan Statue Complex, beyond the open land and towering figure, lies a quieter space designed for calm observation. The museum does not announce itself loudly. It waits inside the structure, ready to receive visitors who choose to slow down. This interior space offers a different way of meeting history, one that favors patience over spectacle. The museum is arranged with clarity and care. Exhibits follow a logical sequence, guiding visitors gently from one section to the next. There is no confusion about where to begin or how to continue. The layout allows the story to unfold naturally, without requiring effort or instruction. History here is not rushed. It walks at a comfortable pace. Artifacts displayed within the museum reflect different aspects of Mongolian history. Objects of daily life, tools, and ceremonial items rest quietly behind glass. They do not compete for attention. Each piece is given space to breathe, allowing visitors to notice details without feeling overwhelmed. The arrangement encourages calm focus rather than quick scanning. Traditional clothing holds a special place in the exhibition. Fabrics, patterns, and forms speak softly of culture and identity. These garments do not try to impress with brightness or excess. Instead, they invite closer looking. The textures suggest movement, weather, and long use, offering a sense of how history was worn rather than simply recorded. Maps occupy another important section of the museum. Large and carefully presented, they trace the expansion of the Mongol Empire across vast territories. Many visitors find themselves standing in front of these maps for longer than expected, not because they are difficult to understand, but because they quietly encourage slower thinking. There is something gently amusing about this moment. People pause, follow lines with their eyes, then pause again. The maps do not demand attention, yet they hold it. History, spread across wide spaces, seems to suggest that understanding large movements takes time. The body responds by standing still. The museum lighting supports this experience. Soft and even, it avoids sharp contrasts. Shadows are minimal. The eyes do not tire easily. This design choice allows visitors to remain present without strain, reinforcing the sense that learning can happen comfortably. Movement through the museum feels unforced. Pathways are clear but not rigid. Visitors can linger, return, or move ahead without disrupting the flow. There is no pressure to see everything in one pass. The space respects individual rhythms, allowing curiosity to guide movement naturally. Informational texts are concise and calm. They provide context without overwhelming detail. The language is accessible, inviting reading without requiring long concentration. Visitors can absorb information gradually, choosing when to read and when to simply observe. The museum does not attempt to dramatize history. There are no sudden sounds or aggressive visuals. Instead, it relies on presence and arrangement. Objects, images, and maps work together quietly, allowing meaning to emerge without force. This restraint gives the space its soothing quality. Visitors often notice that time feels slower inside the museum. Steps soften. Breathing deepens. History becomes something to spend time with, rather than something to consume quickly. The contrast with the statue outside is gentle and intentional. Where the monument offers height and openness, the museum offers enclosure and detail. Together, they create balance. One invites looking up, the other invites looking closely. The museum space also serves as a bridge between ancient history and modern presentation. While the statue uses contemporary materials and scale, the museum relies on arrangement and calm storytelling. This combination allows visitors to experience history in layers, each supporting the other. There is quiet respect in how the exhibits are presented. Nothing feels exaggerated, nothing feels minimized. The museum trusts visitors to engage thoughtfully without instruction or urgency. For many, the museum becomes a place of rest within the complex, a pause between open spaces, a moment to sit, stand, and reflect. History here feels close, but not demanding. In this way, the museum fulfills its role gently. It preserves artifacts, stories, and context, while maintaining a peaceful atmosphere. Learning happens without effort. Curiosity is welcomed without pressure. The museum reminds visitors that history does not always need to be loud to be remembered. Sometimes it simply needs a quiet room, clear paths, and enough time to move slowly through them. Maps, movement, and the art of slow observation. As visitors continue through the museum, attention often settles on the map rooms. These spaces hold a particular quiet power. Large maps display the reach of the Mongol Empire across continents, drawn with clarity and restraint. They do not overwhelm with decoration. Instead, they invite careful looking, encouraging visitors to trace routes slowly with their eyes. Standing before these maps, many people notice a change in posture. Steps stop, shoulders relax, time stretches gently. The maps do not rush explanation. They allow the viewer to understand scale through stillness. Vast distances become easier to grasp when the body remains calm. The design of these rooms supports this response. Walls remain uncluttered. Colors stay muted. Lighting is even and soft. Nothing distracts from the simple act of looking. This simplicity helps the mind stay present, allowing thought to move at a comfortable pace. Maps are arranged in a sequence that mirrors historical movement. Expansion unfolds gradually from one region to the next. Visitors follow this progression almost instinctively. There is no need to hurry. Each step forward feels natural, guided by curiosity rather than obligation. This slow unfolding creates a sense of continuity. The empire's growth appears not as sudden conquest, but as a process shaped over time. The museum avoids dramatic emphasis, choosing instead to let geography speak for itself. Distance and direction become teachers. Movement through this part of the museum remains fluid. There are no barriers forcing a single direction. People can pause, step back, or return to a previous display easily. This freedom reinforces the idea that understanding benefits from repetition and reflection. The museum's pacing becomes especially noticeable here. Unlike many exhibition spaces that encourage quick circulation, this one accepts lingering. Standing still is not only allowed, but quietly supported. Benches and open floor areas invite rest without drawing attention to themselves. There is a subtle humor in how the maps work. People often expect them to deliver information quickly. Instead, they offer something closer to meditation. Lines stretch across continents, asking the viewer to slow down enough to follow them. History gently insists on patience. This quality makes the museum especially welcoming. Visitors of different ages and backgrounds find their own rhythm. Some read carefully, others simply look. Both experiences feel complete. The space does not measure engagement by speed or volume. The museum's design reflects an understanding that learning does not always require intensity. Sometimes quiet repetition and gentle exposure are enough. Information settles more deeply when the environment remains supportive. In this way, the museum complements the monument outside. Where the statue introduces history through scale, the museum deepens it through pace. One captures attention, the other sustains it. By the time visitors near the end of the exhibition, many feel surprisingly rested. The experience has not demanded effort. It has offered structure without pressure. History has been encountered as something steady and approachable. The final spaces do not attempt to summarize or conclude forcefully. Instead, they allow the experience to fade naturally. Displays thin out. Space opens slightly. The body prepares to return to the open air. This gentle ending reinforces the museum's overall philosophy. History does not need a strong conclusion. It can remain open, continuing beyond the walls. Visitors leave with impressions rather than instructions. Stepping outside again, the statue may come back into view. The experience inside the museum changes how it is seen. Knowledge adds quiet depth. The monument feels more familiar, less distant. Together, the museum and the surrounding complex create a complete rhythm. Observation, rest, movement, and reflection flow into one another. There is no sharp boundary between learning and experience. The museum space proves that history can be presented without urgency. Through careful design, balanced pacing, and respect for the visitor's body and attention, it creates an environment where understanding arrives naturally. In this calm setting, the past feels neither heavy nor remote. It feels present, patient, and willing to wait. The museum does not hurry memory, it gives it room. As visitors depart, they often carry a sense of quiet satisfaction. Not because they learned everything, but because they were allowed to learn gently. This may be the museum's most lasting gift. In offering space, sequence, and stillness, the museum fulfills its role. It turns history into a companion rather than a task, allowing it to remain close, calm, and enduring. Calm understanding remains here always. Chapter 9. Visiting and Landscape Observation. Open space, wide views, and a slower way of seeing. Beyond its role as a monument and museum, the Genghis Khan Statue Complex offers something simpler and perhaps more lasting: space to look around without hurry. The complex is designed not only for learning, but for viewing, resting, and quietly observing the surrounding landscape. This function shapes the entire visiting experience, turning it into a calm journey rather than a scheduled activity. From the moment visitors step into the open areas, the sense of space becomes clear. The land stretches outward with few obstacles. Paths do not rush forward. They invite steady movement, encouraging people to walk at their own pace. There is no single viewpoint that demands immediate attention. Instead, views appear gradually, unfolding as visitors move. Wide sight lines allow the eye to travel freely across the landscape. Hills, sky, and distant horizons remain visible from many points within the complex. This openness reduces visual tension. There is no need to focus intensely. The eyes can rest while still taking in the scene. Observation here feels effortless. The placement of walkways supports this gentle experience. Paths curve naturally, guiding visitors without directing them sharply. Movement becomes rhythmic. Steps fall into a steady pattern. Walking turns into a quiet activity, closer to wandering than touring. Observation platforms and open spaces appear at comfortable intervals. These areas do not announce themselves loudly. They simply offer a place to stop. Visitors may lean slightly, stand still, or sit briefly. The landscape remains unchanged, whether one stays for a moment or a long while. This patience encourages lingering. The ability to see far without obstruction plays an important role. Long views slow the mind. When the horizon remains visible, thought tends to stretch rather than compress. This effect makes the visit feel restorative. Looking outward becomes a form of rest. There is a subtle humor in how the space manages attention. With so much to see, there is nothing that insists on being seen immediately. The landscape does not compete for focus, it waits. This waiting allows visitors to choose when and how deeply to observe. Weather and light add to this experience. Clouds move slowly across the sky. Shadows shift gently across the ground. These changes are gradual, not dramatic. Visitors may notice time passing without feeling it press upon them. Observation becomes continuous rather than segmented. The open design also allows visitors to regulate their own energy. Those who wish to walk longer can do so. Those who prefer frequent pauses are equally accommodated. There is no correct pace. The space adapts quietly to different rhythms. Unlike more crowded attractions, the complex avoids visual overload. There are no dense clusters of structures or signs. This restraint leaves room for the landscape to remain the primary presence. Built elements support viewing rather than interrupt it. For many visitors, this function becomes the most memorable aspect of the complex. The act of simply standing and looking feels complete. No explanation is required. The landscape speaks in its own calm language. This approach to visiting aligns naturally with the broader theme of the site. History here is not delivered quickly, it is absorbed slowly. Observing the land becomes part of understanding the past, even without specific information. The gentle pace also makes the visit physically comfortable. There is no need to rush from one point to another. The body relaxes, breathing settles. Movement feels optional rather than required. This environment suits those who enjoy combining viewing with rest. The complex allows visitors to pause without leaving the experience. Rest becomes part of participation rather than a break from it. In this way, the function of landscape observation supports a different kind of engagement. Visitors are not pushed toward conclusions or highlights. They are invited to notice what is already there. The complex demonstrates that visiting does not need to be active to be meaningful. Quiet presence can be enough. Looking, standing, and moving slowly create their own form of understanding. The open space also encourages repeated visits. Because there is no single correct path or sequence, each visit can feel slightly different. Light, weather, and mood shape observation anew. Ultimately, the function of viewing and observing the landscape offers balance. It complements the monument and museum by providing openness and ease. Together, these elements create an experience that feels complete without being demanding. The landscape does not ask visitors to remember details. It allows them to remember feelings instead. Calm, space, and time become the lasting impressions. Through open design, wide views, and slow movement, the complex offers a way of visiting that feels gentle and human. It is an invitation to look, rest, and continue when ready. Resting the eyes, calm movement, and unhurried visits. As visitors continue to spend time within the complex, Many begin to notice how easily observation blends with rest. The space does not separate walking from pausing. Both happen naturally, without instruction. This balance defines the visiting function of the site, making it suitable for those who prefer to observe while gently recovering energy. The open layout allows visitors to choose how long they remain in each area. Some walk slowly along the paths, stopping often. Others find a comfortable place to stand and simply look outward. Neither approach feels more correct than the other. The environment accepts both with equal ease. Because views extend far across the surrounding land, attention naturally shifts outward rather than inward. Visitors are not required to analyze or interpret. The eyes follow lines in the landscape. The mind settles into a quieter rhythm. Observation becomes passive in the best sense of the word. This quality makes the complex especially appealing to those who enjoy visiting without pressure. There is no sense of missing something important if one pauses too long. The landscape remains consistent. Nothing disappears when one stops moving. This stability allows rest to feel safe within the experience. The slow pace encouraged by the design also changes how people move. Steps become shorter, breathing becomes deeper. The body adjusts to a calmer state. Visiting turns into a form of gentle activity rather than effort. There is quiet humor in how the space seems to understand human limits. It offers wide views, then provides places to stop. It allows curiosity to arise, then gives permission to rest. The design appears to say that history, scenery, and comfort can coexist peacefully. From higher observation points, visitors can see the complex, the monument, and the surrounding land at once. This layered view helps create a sense of orientation. Nothing feels hidden, everything feels accessible. Understanding comes through seeing relationships rather than details. The absence of noise contributes strongly to this experience. Without constant sound or movement, observation becomes deeper. Silence here is not empty. It supports attention by removing distraction. Visitors often notice their own footsteps or breathing more clearly, which reinforces calm. This environment is well suited to those who prefer quiet travel. People who enjoy walking slowly, sitting briefly, or simply standing and looking often find this space especially satisfying. There is no expectation to perform or react. Presence alone is enough. The visiting function of the complex also accommodates different lengths of stay. Short visits feel complete. Longer visits do not feel tiring. The space adjusts to the visitor rather than the visitor adjusting to the space. This flexibility encourages repeat visits. Returning at different times of day or in different weather conditions changes the experience gently. Light, shadow, and air alter the landscape without altering its calm nature. The slow movement supported by the design also affects how history is perceived. Rather than being delivered as information, history becomes atmosphere. The land itself participates in storytelling, offering context without explanation. There is a sense that nothing here needs to be finished. Observation does not have a clear endpoint. Visitors can leave when they feel ready, not when they feel done. This difference is subtle but important. The complex avoids creating urgency. There are no narrow paths or crowded viewpoints that push movement forward. Space remains generous. Time feels expandable. For those who enjoy combining travel with rest, this approach is especially appealing. Visiting becomes restorative rather than exhausting. The body is included in the experience, not ignored. In this way, the function of landscape observation completes the complex's overall design. Monument, museum, and open space work together. Each supports a different pace, allowing visitors to move between looking up, looking closely, and simply looking around. The result is a visiting experience that feels humane. It respects attention, energy, and comfort. History and landscape are presented without urgency, allowing appreciation to grow naturally. As visitors eventually move away from the complex, many carry a sense of ease rather than accomplishment. The visit does not feel like a task completed. It feels like time well spent. This may be the most meaningful function of the site. It offers a place where observation is slow, movement is optional, and rest is allowed. History is present, but it does not hurry anyone. Through open space, wide views, and gentle pacing, the complex provides a way of visiting that aligns with calm curiosity. It invites people to look, pause, and continue only when they choose. In doing so, it turns landscape observation into a quiet form of participation. Visitors are not required to do more than be there. That, in this space, is enough. Chapter 10. The Present. Historical value of the monuments. Two structures, two eras, one continuous memory. Today, the ancient capital of Karakorum and the Genghis Khan Statue Complex exist side by side within the historical landscape of Mongolia, each representing a different moment in time. One belongs to a distant past shaped by stone, wood, and movement. The other stands firmly in the present, shaped by steel, design, and intention. Together they offer a calm and complete picture of how history can be remembered in more than one way. Karakorum speaks quietly. Its foundations, open spaces, and worn surfaces tell stories without insisting on attention. The city no longer functions as a capital, yet it continues to carry meaning through what remains. Its value today lies not in activity, but in presence. The absence of buildings becomes as important as what is still visible. History here is experienced through space and silence. The statue complex, by contrast, speaks through visibility. It was built to be seen, approached, and visited. Its role is not to replace the past, but to acknowledge it openly. In doing so, it reflects a modern understanding of remembrance. History is not only something discovered in ruins, it can also be shaped intentionally using contemporary materials and design. These two structures represent different approaches to historical memory. Karakorum allows time to do the work of preservation. Weather, erosion, and patience shape its story. The statue complex relies on construction and care, ensuring that memory remains visible and accessible. One trusts time, the other supports it. Together they show that history does not belong to a single method. It can survive through fragments or through form. Both approaches are valid and both contribute to understanding. The value lies not in choosing one over the other, but in allowing them to coexist. In the present day, visitors experience this contrast directly. Walking among the remains of Karakorum encourages reflection. The pace slows naturally, thought becomes quieter. Standing before the statue complex introduces clarity and orientation. History feels closer, more immediate. The shift between these experiences creates balance. There is gentle humor in this arrangement. One site asks visitors to imagine what once stood there. The other makes sure there is something very tall to look at, just in case imagination needs help. Together they remind us that memory can be patient, but it can also appreciate a clear reminder. The historical value of these monuments today is not limited to education. They also offer emotional and physical experiences. Karakorum provides calm and space. The statue complex provides structure and focus. Both allow visitors to engage with history without pressure. Importantly, neither site demands urgency. Karakorum does not rush interpretation. The statue complex does not overwhelm with information. Each allows history to be encountered at a comfortable pace. This quality makes their value enduring. In modern contexts where attention is often divided and time feels compressed, these monuments offer an alternative. They demonstrate that history does not need to compete for focus. It can wait. It can be approached slowly. The coexistence of ancient and modern monuments also reflects Mongolia's relationship with its past. Rather than freezing history in one form, the country allows it to appear in layers. Ancient remains and modern symbols support one another. Memory is expanded rather than replaced. This layered approach helps history remain relevant. Karakorum alone might feel distant to some. The statue complex alone might feel symbolic without depth. Together they provide both context and connection. The present value of these monuments also lies in how they shape movement. Visitors move differently through ruins than through designed spaces. Experiencing both encourages awareness of pace, posture, and attention. History becomes something felt in the body, not only understood intellectually. There is also value in how these sites encourage rest. Neither requires constant engagement. Pauses are allowed. Looking, sitting, and standing quietly are all acceptable forms of participation. This generosity toward the visitor contributes to the monument's lasting appeal. In the end, the historical value of Karakorum and the Genghis Khan Statue Complex today lies in their shared patience. One has waited for centuries. The other is prepared to wait. Both understand that memory does not need urgency to survive. They stand as reminders that history can be preserved through ruin or through construction, through silence or through form. What matters most is not how history is kept, but that it is allowed to remain present. By existing together, these monuments tell a complete story, not a loud one, not a hurried one. Just a story told slowly enough to be heard. Slow remembrance in a modern world. In the present day, the value of Karakorum and the Genghis Khan Statue Complex extends beyond their physical forms. They function as places where history is not only remembered, but experienced in a way that feels calm and unforced. This quality gives them lasting relevance in a world that often moves too quickly. Karakorum offers a lesson in quiet endurance. Its remains do not explain themselves. They do not compete for attention. Instead, they allow visitors to arrive slowly and discover meaning through absence and space. This approach teaches patience. History here does not perform. It waits. The statue complex offers a complementary lesson. It shows how modern design can support remembrance without overwhelming it. The monument is clear and visible, yet it does not rush interpretation. Visitors are free to look, pause, and move on when ready. Memory is presented as something stable, not urgent. Together, these two sites demonstrate that historical value is not limited to age alone. Karakorum is ancient, shaped by centuries of change. The statue complex is recent, shaped by intention and care. Both hold value because both respect time. One has been shaped by it, the other allows space for it. In contemporary life, where history is often reduced to brief summaries or fast consumption, these monuments offer an alternative. They suggest that remembering does not require speed. It requires presence. Visitors are invited to slow their pace, adjust their attention, and allow understanding to form naturally. There is subtle humor in how effective this approach is. Karakorum barely tries to be impressive, yet leaves a deep impression. The statue complex stands tall and polished, yet gently encourages moderation. Together they seem to agree that history works best when it is not rushed. The present historical value of these sites also lies in how they shape behavior. Visitors move differently within these spaces. Steps become slower. Voices soften. Observation replaces activity. These physical changes reflect a deeper engagement with history, one that involves the body as well as the mind. Importantly, these monuments do not demand expertise. One does not need extensive knowledge to appreciate them. Karakorum allows imagination to fill gaps. The statue complex provides clarity without complexity. Both are accessible without being simplified. This accessibility ensures that the monuments remain meaningful to diverse audiences. Locals, travelers, scholars, and casual visitors all find something appropriate to their pace and interest. History does not belong to one group alone. It is shared quietly. The coexistence of ancient ruins and modern monuments also reflects a mature relationship with the past. Rather than choosing between preservation and creation, Mongolia allows both. History is not frozen. It is allowed to continue. This approach acknowledges that each generation remembers differently. Karakorum reflects how history survives through time. The statue complex reflects how history is intentionally recalled. Neither approach cancels the other. Together they expand the ways memory can exist. There is also value in how these monuments resist spectacle. Neither relies on constant stimulation. Silence, space, and proportion do much of the work. This restraint allows visitors to remain comfortable, even during long visits. As places to visit today, both sites encourage rest as much as learning. Sitting, standing, and simply looking are all valid forms of engagement. This generosity toward the visitor makes history feel welcoming rather than demanding. The historical value of these monuments is therefore not only informational, but experiential. They teach by atmosphere. They remind visitors that history can be approached gently. In a world that often emphasizes speed and efficiency, these sites offer something different. They provide room to slow down. They allow memory to settle rather than rush past. As time continues, both Karakorum and the statue complex will change. Ruins will weather further. Steel will age. These changes will add to their stories rather than diminish them. History here is not fixed. It remains alive through time. Ultimately, the value of these monuments today lies in their shared calm. They do not insist on attention. They offer it quietly. They trust visitors to engage when ready. By existing together, Karakorum and the Genghis Khan Statue Complex demonstrate that history can be preserved through silence or through form, through patience or through design. What matters is not the method, but the care. In this way, history becomes something lived rather than consumed. It becomes a presence rather than a performance. And sometimes, as these monuments gently suggest, telling history slowly is more than enough. A gentle closing. Beside Mongolia's timeless monuments. Tonight, as the story of Mongolia's great monuments gently comes to rest, what remains is not a list of facts or dates, but a feeling. Across wide land and long centuries, the works left behind by the Mongols continue to speak in calm and patient ways. They do not raise their voices, they simply remain, allowing history to breathe at its own pace. Karakorum, once a living capital, now rests quietly among open fields and sky. Its stones no longer carry footsteps of empire, yet they hold something just as valuable: memory without urgency. The city teaches that greatness does not vanish when activity ends. Sometimes it becomes softer, waiting to be noticed by those willing to slow down. Nearby in spirit, though separated by time, the Genghis Khan Statue Complex stands with modern clarity. Its steel surface reflects clouds and light, reminding us that history is never completely still. Even remembrance evolves. The monument does not compete with the past. It stands beside it, offering another way to remember, another rhythm for understanding. Together, these great works show that history can be preserved in many forms. Stone and earth, steel and space, ruins and design all share the same purpose: to carry human stories forward. None of them rush, none of them demand. They wait, confident that memory does not need to be hurried to survive. There is something deeply comforting in this approach. In a world that often feels fast and crowded, these monuments invite a different way of being. They allow visitors to walk slowly, to look without pressure, to rest while learning. History here is not a task. It is a companion. The greatness of Mongolian monuments lies not only in their scale, but in their patience. They accept weather, time, and silence as partners. They remind us that endurance is often quiet, that strength does not always need movement, that sometimes standing still is enough. As this journey through history comes to a close, it is worth carrying this gentleness with you. The stories of empires and leaders, of cities and symbols, do not need to be held tightly. They can be allowed to settle softly, like evening light, across open land. Let these monuments remain in your thoughts as calm presences rather than distant lessons. Imagine Karakorum resting under the stars. Imagine the statue reflecting moonlight without effort. History continues even while you rest. As you drift further into rest, you may notice how easily these images blend into quiet imagination. Wide horizons, steady forms, and patient spaces have a way of calming the mind. They remind us that history is not something to chase, but something to return to when we need steadiness. The Mongolian landscape itself plays an essential role in this feeling. Open land stretches without hurry, holding monuments gently rather than surrounding them. This relationship between earth and structure mirrors the relationship between memory and time. Nothing is forced. Everything belongs. These great works were never meant only for one generation. They were shaped, preserved, and remembered so that many could encounter them in different ways. Some come seeking knowledge, others come seeking silence. Both are welcomed equally. In this way, the monuments continue to serve even now. They offer perspective, They suggest that human effort, when guided by patience, can leave behind something calm and lasting. Not everything great needs to be loud. As your thoughts grow quieter, allow this idea to settle. Let history become a gentle background rather than a focus. Let images fade naturally, like footsteps disappearing into grass. The night is a kind teacher. It does not rush sleep. It invites it slowly, just as these monuments invite understanding. With each breath, allow the day to loosen its grip. There is no need to remember every detail. What matters is the feeling that remains, a sense of balance, of space, of time moving without pressure. May that feeling stay with you as you rest. May it return whenever you need calm. History will still be there tomorrow. The monuments will continue to wait. For now, it is enough to rest. Close your eyes gently and let the quiet do the rest. The land, the monuments, and the stories can stand watch while you sleep peacefully. May tomorrow greet you softly with calm thoughts, steady moments, and a sense of quiet continuity. Rest well beneath the same sky, always. Thank you for traveling gently through the history of Mongolia's great monuments. Good night and sleep well.